And everything we talked about, all these folks are talking about, you know, and so what we're doing is we're collecting everything and solving the language and it goes out together. If we put this back, we can hit a couple along this way. Yeah. Well, I mean, we run the ravine on our side, but we could only you know, palming up in the springtime. And I mean, I could put some lines back in here and run it all the way over here and run it all the way back. Yeah. So, Mark, I don't know. They express a lot of concerns about drainage, and I can address it directly. And it's in our best interest to get the air as possible. No, we're not going to do that, of course not. Okay, well, I'm just asking. Yeah, no. But I mean, it's. Don't go for it. Right. Well, he didn't know everything. Well, that's what he does. Bring it up. So that's up to you. Oh yeah. Yes. Just couldn't get enough, huh? No. Yeah. Yeah, I just got issued yesterday. I know. What version of this guy is? So what's the next one? The purple camera. He didn't work. Just before 2 years. Yes. The camera's connected. This is
Bill, you didn't do it standing on your head.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Call to order the meeting of the Common Council for Friday, May 3rd. Roll call.
Excuse me.
Twelve are present, Your Honor.
We have a quorum and we'll proceed. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to invite Chief Litton up to the dais here, along with Ryan Hintz from Local 141, to lead us in a moment of silence.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank the mayor for giving us this brief opportunity to recognize the tragic events last week. As all of you, I'm sure, are aware, an Atherton firefighter lost his life in the line of duty last Wednesday in a senseless act of desperation and cruelty, and really created a monumental tragedy for the Appleton Fire Department, the family of the firefighter, the whole community, the region, actually. Just wanted to say very quickly that how proud I am of the members of the Green Bay Metro Fire Department. Countless members went down to Appleton volunteering their time last Wednesday. We got last night volunteering to cover their station to host people at the firefighter's house to keep unwanted visitors away from their family, to posting guard in honor of firefighter Lundgaard, and then about 60 members showing up yesterday at the service and representing Green Bay in a monumental and fabulous way. So I'd be more proud to serve alongside a group of individuals, and a few of them that are standing behind me here. We were very well represented. I appreciate the outpouring of support from the mayor and council. I want to thank the police department, Chief Smith, Amanda Warwick, and the whole crew that was down there from the police department as well that supported Appleton, and our detectives were involved in the investigation itself. So really a tragic event that shows, out of that, the humanity of people and the outpouring of support from Appleton and throughout this whole region. Again, Mayor, thank you for that. I'm going to introduce Ryan Hintz, who's the president of Local 141. He has something to say as well.
Thank you, everyone. Just a little bit about the firefighters lost. Mitchell Lundgaard was 36 years old when he was taken last Wednesday. He was actually a graduate from Southwest High School here in Green Bay in 2000. He ended up joining the Appleton Fire Department 14 years ago. After September 11th, he wanted to do something to help the community. He looked into the four branches of the military and decided firefighting was the route that he wanted to take. He left behind his high school sweetheart, Lindsay, of 12 years. They had a 9-year-old boy named Evan, a 7-year-old boy named Logan, and a 4-year-old named Ryan. He was an amazing father, husband, firefighter, and friend. he went to work that day. It was a normal shift. It was a normal call that we go on every single day in Green Bay, and nobody really knew the fate of that day and what was going to happen. This really could happen to any fire department in the area with the growing drug problem and violence problem. This is something that we've had to trade in from worrying about our firefighters being lost in a fire to now we need to add shootings to the list. So our profession used to worry about the ultimate sacrifice being made in the burning building. Times are changing, buildings burn faster, and now we need to add shootings and bulletproof vests to the list. So overall, he'd be greatly missed. The funeral yesterday was a fitting and he was. Every person that went up there spoke highly of how involved he was in the community, his family, and his profession. So thank you for that moment.
I just ask everyone to bow their head for a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you, Chief and Ryan, for those words and that moment of silence and for everything you do every day to protect the citizens of Green Bay. And thanks also for the way that you responded to this tragedy and worked with the City of Appleton and their fire department to support them in this time of need. So, thank you. We're on to approval of the minutes.
So move.
Entertain a motion to approve the minutes of April 15th, 2019, moved by Alder from the 7th, seconded by Alder from the 10th. Are there any corrections that need to be made? Seeing no requests, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes have been approved. Approval of the agenda.
I'd like to amend the agenda.
Alder from the 7th, I'll entertain a motion to amend.
I'd like to take item 4 from Parks and take that right after item U. And then I'd also like to take item 9 from Protection and Policy and item 6 from Finance and do those at the same time as V1.
Anything else?
That should do it, thank you.
Seeing no further requests, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Second.
Got a second for the motion?
Second.
Thank you, seconded by Alder from the 8th. Seeing no further requests, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The agenda before you has been approved with those changes. We're on to the report of the mayor. So I just wanted to touch base on a couple topics before we get into the meeting tonight. First, the administration has recommended some policy changes for our workforce in the form of more flexible schedules, more accommodating summer hours, and leave policy that makes room for volunteer activities in the community. This is being done for 2 reasons from my perspective. 1, to make the city of Green Bay as an employer an attractive 21st century workplace, places to do business. 2, to allow our employees to make a difference in the community in a way that fits into their busy lives and schedules. These are new concepts for us, though certainly not in the corporate world, and I appreciate that others might not do things as I do. But I do believe we need to get serious about building up and valuing the people who work in this building and in our city facilities across the community. Municipal budgets, as you all know better than I at this point, are incredibly unforgiving these days. So much of what I'd like to do to express my support and gratitude to our employees is out of reach. But the policies this administration is endorsing tonight should not be, do not have to be. These changes are incremental and they're fiscally responsible, yet they also send the message that we are interested in moving this workplace forward and doing it in a way that benefits the community as a whole. I hope our council appreciates and supports this goal ultimately. Secondly, there's an item before us that pertains to our relationship with the Oneida Nation. The details, obviously, I can't discuss in open session, but I want to make clear that I believe we're in need of a reset here with this relationship. The city recently passed a 3-year mark without a service agreement or intergovernmental agreement with the Oneida Nation, which has deprived the city coffers of hundreds of thousands of dollars and gotten us nothing of tangible value in return, in my view. So I'm looking forward to beginning negotiations in a new light, with a clean slate, and with the intention of constructing an agreement between our two governments that is beneficial to the people we represent here. Also wanted to just let alders and the public know that we plan to use a summer schedule of meetings coming up here in the summer months, as is the custom in Green Bay. So we'll be meeting once a month from June through September. Feel free to get in touch with my office if you have any questions or suggestions for meeting times. Finally, I do want to wish everyone a very solemn Memorial Day. Of course, City Hall will be closed to recognize the holiday, and we hope that everyone enjoys the weekend and spend some time thinking about those who gave everything in defense of this country. So that concludes my report. Announcements. Alder from the 10th.
Thank you, Your Honor. I've got a couple here. Some of you may be aware of the Jocks family, Joe and Bree. They passed in a car accident on Mother's Day. Joe was in my District 10. He was one of those go-to people that I could always rely on when I had a tough issue, and he was always there for us. Great personality, father of 5. His daughter was 16. Very tragic, and it kind of reminds you of what is really important in our lives. So I would like you just to keep your thoughts and prayers for the Jocks family, and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Oh, I have one more. I'm sorry. St. Paul's United Methodist Church on Wilson and Division has a little free pantry on the north side of the building. Supposedly it's the first of its kind in Brown County. It is filled with non-perishable items and available to anyone who needs it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Alder from the 4th.
Thank you, Your Honor. This past weekend, we had another flooding incident in our community. I want to thank all those from the city that were involved. Obviously, it wasn't as bad as the one last month or the month before, but it got close. It obviously ruined the full marathon, but it also affected residents again down along the East River. Because I was given information in a timely fashion from DPW, I was able to share that with residents, who shared it with other residents, and then I really want to give a shout out to the Mayor's Chief of Staff, Celestine Jeffries, who kept me informed by email all throughout the night with updates that I was able to pass on to those residents. And a few of them got back to me and they were very thankful, even though they were still very worried about their properties and that. It just made them feel good to know that the city cared and was interacting with them to keep them apprised of the situation. So, thank you.
Thank you, Alder. And Alder from the 9th.
Thank you, Mayor. On an upbeat note, I just learned that it is Alder Vanderleest's birthday today. And he is celebrating his 70th birthday, a tremendous milestone. So I just wanted to recognize and say happy birthday to Alder Vanderleest.
Give me a second.
Thank you, Alder. Any other announcements? On to recognitions and awards. Chief Smith, I think, has a recognition here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to take a moment today to recognize a real all-star in policing here in Green Bay, and that is Sergeant Mike Metzger. He's been nominated and been awarded from the American Police Hall of Fame and Museum, which is in Florida, the prestigious J. Edgar Hoover Memorial Award. Now, this is an award that was started in 1985, and so far only across the country since then, only 237 people have been awarded this memorial award for J. Edgar Hoover, only 12 from Wisconsin. So Sergeant Netz will be the 13th person from Wisconsin to get this award since its inception, 1985. And just so you know, this award is issued to law enforcement officers who successfully completed additional training and recognizes officers who continue to seek a lifetime of education and advancement. And that's really what Mike Netzger is all about. I've got about half of his bio here, and we don't have time to go through it all. But it reads like a chief's dream of an employee. 27 years of law enforcement experience, field training supervisor, 10-year SWAT veteran, teacher, an adjunct facility member at Northeast Wisconsin Technical College for 18 years, training unit instructor, 4-book author, just a fantastic guy. And one of the things that many of you know about the Netzger family is a terrible tragedy that they had because of a drunk driver. The murder that occurred of their daughter several years ago would cause many people to just give up, quit their job, and just spend the rest of their life in sorrow. Obviously, Mike didn't do that. He used that as an opportunity to really move on and to use that as an educational tool, which he's done thousands and thousands of times since then. I've seen his presentation several times. It's completely heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, but very impactful, especially on the young people. We gave a sergeant's exam, and the big joke was who's going to be number one. Of course, it was Mike Netzger, number one. And he's wearing the number one badge because he's the first sergeant we made in Green Bay in more than 20 years. But I just want to take a moment today and recognize him and congratulate him publicly for that fantastic award. Well deserved.
First of all, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to request a shorter podium. So I will keep it brief, and which is very difficult for me sometimes. But I first just want to publicly recognize the American Police Hall of Fame and Museum in Titusville, Florida. I've driven by the museum sign multiple times, and I never realized the magnitude of what they do for law enforcement until I was notified of this award. So I will be sure to visit there next time, and I would encourage you to as well. But this award doesn't happen without an amazing support system that I have at home, not only from my very patient wife, who I mentioned yesterday, but I'll say it again, that she will not let me get any more degrees. She's made that very clear. But I've also had I have an amazing surviving son who has become a police officer, and a daughter who I think could be a police officer, but she just wants to get married and have babies. But I also have an amazing set of colleagues and mentors who have shared knowledge with me, and I've always believed in passing on the knowledge to make the next generation better. So I will do everything I can to continue doing what I'm doing and making a positive impact on the law enforcement community, not only here in Green Bay, but across the country. I also want to thank the Green Bay Police Department and the City of Green Bay. As a member of the training unit, I'm able to get access to a lot of training that I've been able to pass on to others. I've also taken advantage of the educational reimbursement programs that are offered through the police department. The city paid for a significant portion of my master's degree, and even though my doctoral degree is funded in most part by a grant, there was a small amount that I had to pay out of pocket that was also reimbursed, so I can't be more thankful for that. And also for Chief Smith and the administration for encouraging this level of recognition. It was Lieutenant Jeff Engelbrecht that nominated me for the award, and I think it's very important that we recognize police officers more each and every day, not only for the risks that they take, but all of our public safety members, our firefighters, our EMS workers, and the like. And as you just heard earlier in this session today, we reflected back on the loss that happened in Appleton, so it's all too very, very real. So I thank all my fellow protectors out there, including EMS and fire. I consider you all protectors, and I'll do everything I can to continue to make a difference in this community and within the industry. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Appreciate everything you do for our community to keep us safe. I also have a recognition up here on the days. And this person is so humble that I had to find out about this award by being tagged on Twitter by the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. Attorney Chavez, City Attorney Vanessa Chavez, recently was awarded the Rising Star Award from Wisconsin Women in Government. So, congratulations. In my short time here, I've been super impressed with Vanessa's intellect and commitment to the city of Green Bay, so really appreciate everything you do. And now we are on to appointments.
For clarification, Mayor.
I just want to be clear, under P4, the Planning Commission, there was a recommendation to appoint an individual to the Business Improvement District, but it is not listed under appointments, and I just want to clarify that that's necessary for it to be here as well.
Okay, appreciate that. Director Vaughn?
I was not in attendance at that meeting because I was at the flood meeting, so I'm not sure in terms of that being passed along. If it's time sensitive, I guess we could pull it up this evening. If not, I think we'll just wait till July in terms of posting properly, if that's all right. Maybe June.
I'll look from the 9th.
I guess I can verify that it is not time sensitive, but just wanted to make sure that it's listed properly in the agenda. Thank you.
Noted. Thank you. So the new appointment in front of us to the Economic Development Authority is John Calwerts at 115 East Walnut, Green Bay, Wisconsin. Term to expire June 1st, 2022.
To approve. Second.
Motion by Alder from the 9th, second by Alder from the 2nd, to confirm the appointment of John Calwerts to the Economic Development Authority. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that item has been approved. We are on to public hearings. So we have a public hearing on the resolution authorizing conditional use approval at 1004 Brett Favre Pass. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to this specific item? Anyone here who would like to speak to this specific item? Anyone here who would like to speak to this specific item? Clerk, please let the record reflect that no one appeared to speak to this item. On to the report of the Redevelopment Authority, May 7th, 2019.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion to approve made by Alder from the 7th, seconded by Alder from the 9th. To approve report K, which is the report of the Redevelopment Authority from the meeting of May 7th, 2019. Are there any items under this report you wish to handle separately?
Number 1.
It's number 1 also.
Okay.
I did use my light. I don't know if it's showing up.
That was one of the
Okay, item 1 will be handled separately. Hearing no others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that report has been approved with the exception of item 1. What are your wishes regarding
Motion
item
to
1?
approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Alder from the 7th, seconded by Alder from the 1st. To approve. All signify by saying aye.
Discussion.
Alder from the 3rd.
Yeah, I was just wondering if someone from city staff can explain this for the record, please.
Director Vaughn.
Sure. Thanks. Last year, RDA and Council approved a professional services agreement with Stantec Consulting to do due diligence and in essence come up with a concept design plan for the shipyard development. At the time, it was requested that the service agreement not exceed $800,000. We're well below that in terms of money that we've spent so far. But we are looking at, Stantec had requested some change orders to look at some additional geotechnical testing on the site. We have reports of geotech on the site. However, based on what we're proposing to build, they'd like to conduct additional geotech testing. Thinking it's good practice to do some of that. It's a riverfront site. It's a remediated site. That before we start building structures, we have very good knowledge of what soils on top we are building, as in to prevent shifting or movement in the future. So with that, we are requesting an additional $200,000 be added to that contract. The change orders that were provided so far add about $79,300 onto that contract. This provides a little bit of buffer room for additional testing that may be anticipated as we continue on the project this summer. One of the things that we'll be looking at, there's a contract awarded. You'll see fill starting to go out to both the shipyard site and the breakthrough site in the next few weeks. We'd like to do some additional testing as that goes on, just to make sure it's settling properly before we start construction. I think doing some diligence now to understand the soils and what we're building will prevent, hopefully, errors later on if the site does intend to settle.
Appreciate it, thank you. This is off the subject. I'm trying to basically open up the PDFs, and for some reason it's not, so I can read some minutes here. I got blank. Can someone assist me, please? I'll show you. Or you're getting it too? Oh, okay. I thought I was the only one. Thank you. Go to anything. Any subject. Try to open that up. I get blank. I know if you. So Mayor, I appreciate the feedback. I'm done. Okay. Thank you, Lord. Seeing no other requests to speak, all in favor of the motion? Okay. Yeah, on the screen here, so apologize for that.
My question is for Dr. Bunk. The $800,000, is that bonded for last year? And where's the additional $200,000 coming from if we added the $200,000?
So right now, we bonded $2 million, authorized $2 million of expenditures last year to deal with the consulting and the purchases of real estate. From a cash flow perspective, we have not spent that, so we do not anticipate any additional borrowing would be needed. If we go above that threshold, part of that would come back for when we look to bond for the actual construction of the project, the infrastructure and other pieces. But right now we have funds sufficient to cover the expenses, so no additional borrowing will be necessary at this moment.
That's just my question. Thank you.
Confirm with Director Hellenbecker. Yes.
Sure. Thank you, Alder. Any other requests to speak? Not all in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
No.
The ayes have it. The item has been approved. On to resolutions.
You may, under suspension of the rules, adopt resolutions 1 through 7 together by one roll call vote.
Second.
Motion by Alder from the 7th, and second by Alder from the 10th to suspend the rules to take up these items with one roll call vote. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The rules are suspended. I'll entertain a motion to adopt resolutions 1 through 7.
Second.
Motion made by Alder from the 7th, seconded by Alder from the 5th to adopt resolutions 1 through 7. Please use the board.
Passed unanimously. On to item M, report of the Improvement and Services Committee.
Motion to approve.
May 14th, 2019. Motion made by Alder from the 7th, seconded by Alder from the 8th to approve report M, which is the report of the Improvement and Services Committee from the meeting on May 14th, 2019. Any items under this report you wish to handle separately?
5 and 6C. And B.
5B.
6B.
6B and C. Items 5, 6B, and 6C will be handled separately. Hearing no others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that report has been approved with the exception of items 5 and 6B and 6C. What are your wishes regarding
Motion
these
to
items?
approve.
Second.
Motion made by Alder from the 7th, seconded by Alder from the 1st to approve items 5, 6B, and 6C.
Mr. Mayor, can we take those separately?
Motion's been made to take those items up separately. Motion made by Alder from the 9th, seconded by Alder from the 10th. Item has been pulled by Alder from the 9th. So we're on item 5 right now? Okay. I'm just going to maybe reiterate some comments that I made at the committee level. About a year ago, probably not even that much, we made a decision not to meet as frequently during the summer months as a council. And call it a rookie mistake, but I think the realization that I'm coming to right now is that we are seeing both the Improvement and Services Committee as well as Protection and Policy Committee looking to authorize staff to make decisions in the absence of the committee. And so I don't support that, not because I don't think our staff is qualified to make those decisions, but I feel that that is our responsibility as a governing body, is to make those policy level decisions. When I look at the discussion, at least related to improvement and services in particular, we have an item coming up here in 6C that I'm going to bring up where we're going to be asked to cast a vote on a $2.5 million contract that staff has recommended, which in their professional opinion is something we ought to move forward with. But my objection is that if we pass this policy, staff would award that contract, and as a city council, we have no ability at that point to go back and reverse that decision because the contract's already been let. And so I think in the spirit of ensuring that we maintain our responsibility and oversight of city-related business, I'm going to oppose this measure, as I'm going to later with Protection and Policy Committee as well. Alder from the 1st.
Thank you, Mayor. It's my understanding, because we've had the summer schedule for years, that if there is a need for an additional meeting to be called, then an additional meeting is called. So it's not written in stone that there's only one. It does give opportunity for staff to take some vacation time during the summer, which I think is important. But there is opportunity to have a special meeting if one is needed. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Any further comments on this item? Motion on item 5?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Alder from the 3rd, seconded by Alder from the 1st to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. On to item 6B. Alder from the 11th.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is for Mr. Grenier. On this 539,000, Steve, and 700, is that parking ramp, does that pretty much cash itself out, or what is the revenues on that ramp that you're doing the repairs right now?
George Grenier.
We spend somewhere between $500,000 and $650,000 a year on combining between the 3 municipally owned ramps. So it's the Cherry Street ramp, the Pine Street ramp, and the Main Street ramp. That's necessary because of the age of the ramp and deterioration to keep those ramps in functional shape so that they can continue to serve the patrons that occupy those on a daily basis. So I guess I'm not sure exactly what your question is trying to tie the contract back, but what I can tell you is when we pass the budget in the fall, the parking budget is part of the overall city budget. The parking division is a special revenue fund, so they do not pay taxpayer money, and they do cover their own costs.
I think that's nice to know as well. And, is this actually going to the Cherry Street ramp, all these repairs?
No, these repairs are split up amongst the Cherry Street ramp, which doesn't have as many because it's not as old. The bulk of the work is done in a combination of the Pine Street and Main Street ramps.
That answers my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alder. Any further comments on item 6B? Motion made by Alder from the 9th. Second. Seconded by Alder from the 3rd to approve. All in favor of approving item 6B will signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. You guys have it. Item is approved. On to item 6C. Alder from the 9th.
Mike, have we found a fix to open up these PDFs yet?
No, I got a help desk support taking in, but
okay, that's fine. I'm gonna maybe use round numbers here. So the reason I pulled this item, again, I'm gonna reiterate the position that I had at the INS committee. I'm not interested in reneging on the city's commitment to do the Colburn Pool project. I think we've been down that road before, and I think it's time that we commit to getting this project done. However, my fundamental objection to this is I find it to be fiscally irresponsible for the city to approve a contract for $2.5 million. That's $500,000 over the engineering budget without a competitive bid. And I think we need to, I mean, if we've got, I mean, when we go back to the elevator discussion that occurred here, I don't know, a month or two ago, I opposed that project as well, because there we also had about $1 million project without a competitive bid. And so I think we need to start having candid conversations about why it is we're not getting these bids. And I know Director Grenier has alluded to that somewhat at our IMS meetings. I get it's a competitive marketplace right now. Contractors can cherry pick their projects, but I don't feel that we should move in an improper way that puts taxpayers at risk by overpaying for projects.
Any other speakers? Yes. Alder from the 7th.
Yeah, I appreciate the Alder's concern, but I believe these have been put out, and I don't know what else we can do. I mean, what are we going to hold these projects up again and again and again? I think we have to go forward. I appreciate wanting to look into seeing what we can do to get more competitive bids, but in the meantime, I don't think we can just keep sending out. I mean, the elevator was brought up. I mean, that was bid out 2 or 3 times, if I remember right, and we got what we got. I mean, we can't just keep holding up these projects and waiting for a competitive bidding that we'd like to see. So I appreciate the concern, but I just don't know what we can do about it. If we can come up with a solution for that, I'm willing to hear and discuss that. But for now, I'll be going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Alder from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The 7-year saga of Colburn Pool, I think we all want to see it, get done at this point. And I understand and appreciate, Alder Johnson's concerns and that we don't like one bid on projects. That's not good for anybody. I think what's happening with this one, this is the 3rd time around at least. I might even be missing it. Might be the 4th or 5th. I don't know. I think you're seeing bidder fatigue and distrust. I think we actually a couple years ago awarded a contract, and we celebrated and we're ready to build a new pool, and then the only veto that happened in 8 years happened with Colburn Pool. So here we find ourselves now. We have $3.6 million set aside. It's sitting there in an account for this project. So if this is 2.5, even with some of the engineering costs, we're still under the amount we set aside. So it's not, we don't have to go out and get any more money for it. So I appreciate it, and I think this is a special case in that bidders are a little bit hesitant on this particular project, and I think let's get this done. It'll be remodeled, and it's going to last another 20, 30 years, and it's going to look great. So appreciate your support. Thanks.
Thank you, Alder. Any further comments?
Entertain a motion on item 6C.
We already did the
You already did the motion?
Yeah, at the beginning.
I'm new.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks, Alder, appreciate it. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. On the report of the Protection and Policy Committee, May 13th, 2019.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Alder from the 7th, seconded by Alder from the 9th to approve Report N, which is the report of the Protection and Policy Committee from the meeting on May 13th, 2019. Just a note, item 9 will be taken up as part of the Committee of the Whole. What are your wishes regarding this report other than that item?
14. 1.
All right. Items 1 and 14 will be handled separately. Hearing no others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
I want to abstain on the whole report. I can't open anything up there. I'm not voting on. Can't open anything up, and we don't have a hard copy of the chart. I got a hard copy if you want to look at it, but nothing.
Any other alders need hard copies?
I got part of mine here for a minute. Let's look at it. I'd like to look at it. I'm not holding up the council to look at a full report record. If it was mailed to me, I could have done it over the weekend or yesterday or the day before. So I'm abstaining on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alder's abstention has been noted. So we are holding items 1 and 14 separately.
Move to approve 1.
Motion made to approve.
Did we go down the rest of it?
We did it.
Yeah.
On the rest of it?
Yeah.
No, I think Elder, he abstained, but we didn't vote.
He's new.
We're all new. I don't think we voted.
Oh, you're still on your own.
Yeah.
2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks.
All right, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the report has
What did we
been.
just approve? Okay, I want to be abstaining.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, what are your wishes regarding items 1 and 14?
Motion to approve.
Motion made to approve by Alder from the 7th.
Yeah, always been a second.
Approve item 1.
Let's take them separate.
Made by, motion made by Alder from the 7th, seconded by Alder from the 8th. On item number 1. Alder from the 9th, you have the floor.
I'm okay on 1.
Oh, you're
No,
gonna.
no, that's all.
Alder from the 3rd.
Thank you. Can anybody from the city explain it? Just give me the gist, please.
Alder from the 7th.
Okay, this just codifies what is already being done in practice. Judges have always had the ability to use community service as part of the penal code.
Got it. All right. Thanks,
So
Randy.
we're just codifying.
All right. Perfect. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any other speakers on that item? Alder from the 9th? On item 30, the lights on. All right. Seeing no other requests to speak, all in favor of motion to approve on item 1, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, signify by saying nay. The ayes have it, the item has been approved. Alder from the 9th on item 14. My objection to this is just to remain consistent with my position on the last improvement services agenda item related to responsibility. This should fall under the oversight of council.
Alderman Seven.
Yeah, I would just like to point out there's a difference here, and that this is not staff but the committee that is in, so it is of 4 members of this body that will be, so it is a little different.
Understood.
Oh, okay, right.
Alder from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I would ask, why can't the committee approve and then forward it to council? We're still meeting once a month during the summer. I don't know why we would give final approval to the committee level when the committee is supposed to be meeting before the council meeting.
Attorney Chavez.
This only applies in instances where it's time sensitive, so a number of times we have people who are trying to get jobs, and so we're holding up their server licenses, or if they're having an outdoor event, a lot of times the event will occur. It's not the actual application for the liquor license itself, it's usually something that's time sensitive, like an outdoor event.
All right, thank you.
Any other speakers? Seeing no other requests to speak.
Mayor.
Alder from the 3rd.
Thank you. Will the alder person be notified if there is a outdoor event? The only reason why, correct, because I represent, I believe, over 27 establishments that serve liquor and beer. I'd like to be aware of it.
You can amend it to include that they would be notified, that the alder would be notified.
That would be my amendment, Mayor.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion made by Alder from the 3rd, seconded by Alder from the 7th to amend item 14 to notify the alder. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Item has been approved. Report of the Protection and Policy Committee granting operator licenses. Motion made by Alder from the 7th, seconded by Alder from the 1st to approve report O, which is the report of the.
We voted on the amendment, but we didn't actually vote on the item.
Good point, Alder. So amendment has been approved to item 14. Report of the Protection and Policy Committee. Entertain a motion to approve the item.
Motion to approve.
Okay. All right, all in favor of the item, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
You guys have it.
So question, Mayor, we will be notified if there's some type of activity. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion by Alder from the 7th, seconded by Alder from the 1st to approve report O, which is the report of the Protection and Policy Committee granting operator licenses. Any names for which you would like to be recorded as abstaining?
I'm trying to request, I want to be abstain on both of these. We'll report.
So noted, Alder, thank you.
Thank you.
Any names under this report you wish to handle separately? Hearing none, all in favor of the report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. You guys have it. The report has been approved. Noting the abstention of Alder from the 3rd. We're on to the report of the Plan Commission, May 13th, 2019.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve made by Alder from the 2nd, seconded by Alder from the 9th to approve report P, which is the report of Plan Commission from the meeting on May 13th, 2019. Any items under this report you wish to handle separately?
Number 1.
Item 1 will be handled separately. Hearing no others, all in favor? We do have some requests to speak on these items.
Second.
Motion made to open the floor by Alder from the 1st, seconded by Alder from the 3rd.
Did we vote on the rest of the report?
All in favor of approving the remainder of the report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
What report?
Planning.
Oh, planning.
The ayes have it, the report has been approved with the exception of item 1.
Motion approved.
Motion made by Alder from the
Second.
9th, seconded by Alder from the 7th. To approve. And that item has been pulled by Alder from the 10th. You have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, I would like to open the floor for interested parties.
Motion made to open the floor to interested parties made by Alder from the 10th, seconded by Alder from the 9th. All in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. You guys have it. The floor is open. Thank you, sir. Please state your name and address.
Yep, Steve Service from Werner Schober, 310 Pine Street. I'm a part of the design team for the medical office building development going into what will be the intersection of Shawano and Taylor Avenue. It's a planned urban development from 2007, just looking to amend it to include the corner where the gas station used to be, kind of right by the roundabout there. It's a simple boundary change to include the entire site for a development of what will be a 4-story building. We'll submit the site plan review thereafter. Thanks.
Thank you.
Motion to close the floor.
Motion made by Alder from the 10th, seconded by Alder from the 5th to close the floor. All in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. You guys have it. Alder from the 10th.
Thank you, Your Honor. This project is in District 10. I just want to go on record as saying that I'm hoping that Prevea Clinic and the neighbors, especially that live on Gary Lane, will work together to make this project work. There was a lot of consternation with the neighbors as far as lighting and drainage and height of the building and the fact that it's pretty close. It's not as close to Taylor and Shawano as it could be. Granted, this happened in 2007 when they had this overlay ordinance come into play. Some of the citizens weren't aware of it, they told me. So with that being said, I feel that Prevea, they gave a good presentation at the hospital with the neighbors. I think they did and the partners that worked with them gave a very good presentation. I feel that they will be good neighbors, and I'm just asking, the fact of the matter is with the overlay zone, they could have built a 10-story building if they liked, so it's 4 stories. So with that being said, I'm still concerned about the citizens. It's a very busy intersection. You've got one of the busiest gas stations in the county right there on Taylor and Beltman and Shawano. You've got Myers on one area, you've got Fleet Farm. It's very, very busy. So that is a concern too as far as traffic and that. So what I'm saying is I'm looking that Prevea and the neighbors work together as best as possible, and I feel that Prevea will do that. That's all I have.
Seeing no other requests to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question. For Director Vonk, will we as a council be seeing this come back at some point, or are we sending it off and just hoping for the best?
Sure. So the site plan that was presented in here is pretty close to what we feel will be submitted. As far as what's before you tonight, the plan unit development amendment, this is the report. The first reading goes on tonight. The second and final reading to codify this will come back to this council in June. Once that is approved, the site plan will be handled administratively, and so long as it complies with the PUD, it will not come back to, the site plan itself will not come back to this body.
All right, thank you. I'll defer to the elder of the district if they feel it's needs of input. Thanks.
Alder from the 10th.
Well, like I said, part of me was, thank you, Your Honor. Part of me was going to fight this, and I'm all about economic development and tax base and all that with the city. I just felt at the time that it could have been handled a little bit better. We've had situations in the past where we've had developments where some of the neighbors weren't aware of it, and we can talk about a few of those. I just want to avoid those in the future. We really need as a city to be open with dialogue and communication and let the neighbors know. I mean, the neighbors sometimes feel like the world's against them. And I'm speaking on behalf of the neighbors on this. Part of me wants to not approve this in my mind. I feel like this is going through. I just wanted to state for the record that I'm looking for Prevea and the neighbors to work together. I feel in good consciousness they will. So with that, I will probably approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Seeing no other requests to speak, all in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the item has been approved. Just wanted to make a note that there are a couple folks who are wishing to speak. It looks like on items 2 and 3 of the report of the Planning Commission.
So would you open it? Do we reconsider? Do we reconsider items 2 and 3? Yes.
Second. Motion made to reconsider items 2 and 3 by Alder from the 8th, seconded by Alder from the 9th. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it.
Open the floor.
Motion made to open the floor by Alder from the 9th, seconded by Alder from the 7th. To open the floor, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Floor is open. So we have a Kim Martin, 1140 West Mason Street.
Which item?
CUP.
It's for 1136 West Mason? Okay. My main concern was, we are considered commercial already. I pulled up my tax records and it does say that we have a commercial property. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
The other concern I had was with parking. And I know when I bought my building 30 years ago, we were grandfathered in with parking. My building is just under 2,000 square feet and I have 6 parking spots. I was told I was okay because it was grandfathered in. But if we made any changements or improvements, we would have to have extra parking. And I looked it up on chapter 13 in the zoning ordinance on page 205. It says that for retail space, you need to have one space per every 250 square feet. For general office, you need to have 1 parking space per every 300 square feet. Our main concern is just that you keep into account that there's limited parking there already. And I don't know if there's if they have that map that they had before. When we went to the other meeting, there was some kind of map. Okay. Well, on the map, it showed that there is parking here, but the zoning that they're asking to change and to add on to is going to be taking parking spaces away from here, but he was figuring they have parking here, but he doesn't own that. The printers up front own the parking spot back here, and the guy that bought this is looking at adding on building here and losing half of his parking. So it's kind of a concern to us as to how the parking matter will be handled. And like I said, I know we add on, you have to bring things up to code, and we're losing parking spaces, and he's adding on more building and more we'll have employees. Thank you.
Question?
We also have Jerome James.
Good evening, Council. Mr. Mayor, I'm the owner of 1136 West Mason, and I just wanted to kind of identify myself for the evening and also let us know that kind of this motion, I think, is more for the conditional use permit itself. The building permit is still under review for the site plan. I think these matters have more to do with the site review committee. That's all.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion to close the floor.
Second.
Made by Alder from the 10th, seconded by Alder from the 5th. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And what are your wishes regarding item 2? We reconsider.
Oh, we can.
Motion made by Alder from the first, seconded by from the second. Seconded by Alder from the first to approve. All in favor of approving that item, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And with regard to item 3.
Second.
Motion to approve, made by Alder from the second, seconded by Alder from the first to approve item 3. Any further discussion? Alder from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It actually has to do more with the meeting as a whole. I'm wondering if Director Ronick is going to be able to fix the attachments. I mean, that was a good example. You know, all of us look at the agendas coming up, but when the specific one comes up, we want to look at it. Right now, we're all flying blind. And so I don't know how much more we have coming up. I don't know if Director Ronick needed 5-10 minutes to fix this.
I've had a help desk request since it started happening. There's no response.
Well, I mean, if it doesn't affect us moving forward, that's fine. But if something comes up that we all need to view, then it's great. That's all I have. Thanks.
Any other speakers? Alder from the third.
Thank you, Mayor. Basically, I can't pull it up for the computer, so what is going there? Can someone just give us the gist? Who represents this area? I'd like to hear from the Alder.
Director Vaughn.
Sure. This is for a limited restaurant and pizza production facility. The reason we're looking at amending this here is to allow for limited production. Basically, if it's under 10,000 square feet of production, and there's no negative impact on surrounding properties, right? No noise, smoke, odor, vibration, any of those types of things. So the production is very limited in scale, and that is why we're recommending this change in the CUP process.
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, good, Mayor.
Thank you, Alder. Seeing no other requests to speak, all in favor of the motion to approve item 3, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The item has been approved. Under the report of the Park Committee, May 14th, 2019. Item. It's been a motion made to approve by Alder from the 8th. Seconded by Alder from the 2nd to approve report Q, which is the report of the Park Committee from the meeting on May 14th, 2019. Just a note, item 4 will be taken up after item U. Any other items under this report you wish to handle separately?
Mr. Mayor, it will be recorded as abstaining on item number 3.
Alder from the 9th, request to be recorded as abstaining on item 3. Yes. Very good. Alder from the 10th.
Thank you, Your Honor. So we cannot pull this item until later, correct? In terms of speakers and such? Yes. Okay. All right. That's all.
Okay. Alder from the 11th. Apologies.
I'm just going to pull number 4. Speak on number 4, and I've already pulled it, so that's fine.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Alder. Hearing no other requests to handle items separately, all in favor of approving that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved. Report of the Personnel Committee, May 14, 2019. What are your wishes regarding this report? Motion to approve made by Alder from the first, seconded by Alder from the second to approve report R, which is the report of the Personnel Committee from meeting on May 14, 2019. Any other items under this report you wish to handle separately?
3, 4.
3 and 4. will be handled separately. Hearing no others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, the report is
I'm going to
approved.
abstain, I can't pull up 1 and 2. Please. Just 1 and 2 right now. So we have 1 and 2. I want to abstain.
Alderman Third wishes to abstain on items 1 and 2. And what are your wishes regarding items 3 and 4? Item 3, separately. Motion made to approve by Alder from the first, seconded by Alder from the second. To approve, the item was pulled by Alder from the first. You have the floor.
Thank you. So I have some things to say about this, but I would like to hear from the public first, because I believe there are people out here that have been waiting to talk about this item. This item is to approve as amended a committee the amendment of the City of Green Bay Personnel Policy Chapter 9 hours of work and fringe benefits to include the policy regarding a volunteer time off program. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to open the floor.
Motion made by Alder from the first, seconded by Alder from the fifth to open the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The floor is open. We have Cora Hultofterheim would like to speak. Please state your address as well.
3962 Prescott Court, Green Bay, Wisconsin. First of all, I want to commend the Personnel Committee for coming forthright and believing in the community needs to upgrade itself and really put itself on the map. We talk about doing a lot of events. We talk about what a wonderful downtown we have. We talk about our bike paths. We're proud of it. I think it's time we realize that our employees, all organizations realize employees are an investment in your future. It takes 2 to 3 times more to train an employee once you lose one. Employees are an investment in every organization's future. The government needs to start thinking like that, in my mind, and as a taxpayer, I commend you for this, bringing this forward. I've also done some research, and there are 2 cities that currently, and I happen to have a friend in one of the towns, and I spoke to them, but it's really I would ask this committee to do some research on what happens to a town. Morrisville, North Carolina, and also in Colorado, Aurora, Colorado. Do some research on what's happened to those government entities when they have offered volunteers to go out and their staff to go out. See what that does. We talk about bringing millennials into living here. We want to put studio apartments up. We want to give them bike paths. We want to give them concerts. What do we need to value our employees here? I would bet that the HR person in this organization, the City of Green Bay, is busy. Most HR people are, because hiring and keeping employees, retention is a tough world out there. When I was 16, it was $1.50 an hour. Figure it out now. I think it's $12, $9 as a minimum wage. We need to retain our employees. Secondly, I happen to have a double purpose for being here. Volunteers are the backbone of my organization. I work for Habitat for Humanity. But I also know, and I don't stand alongside of them, but I know many organizations that volunteers are the backbone of our organization. Last year we were fortunate to have 58,000 hours donated by volunteers. That's how we're able to do what we do. But I ask you to go look around the corners, look around the back streets. There's people that aren't eating. There's people that don't know how to speak English. There's mothers that are battered. Those are all run by nonprofits. Nonprofits exist by volunteer time. So again, I applaud this organization for taking the fortitude and the time and the commitment to think forward and not go backwards. And again, That's my opinion.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll have Katie Hess, 630 Brookridge Street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to start off by going a little bit through the benefits of volunteering. Most of you probably are volunteers, have volunteered, so I'll make this brief. But most of you know that volunteering makes you happier, it decreases stress, it decreases anxiety, it gives you individual fulfillment, it helps you advance your career, it reduces the risk of depression, it also decreases obesity, and it also decreases the risk of disease. Corporate giving strategies are some things that companies do. They've either started them already or they're in the process of developing them. And why do they do that? Because it helps their bottom line. More engaged employees make for more profits. Companies with highly engaged employees have 3 times the operating margin and 4 times the earnings per share of companies with low engagement. 64% of executives surveyed say that corporate citizenship produces tangible contribution to the company's bottom line. In the US, we spend $160 billion annually on employee training and education, and many leaders believe that these programs do not bring lasting change. By the way, if anybody wants the sources for any of this information, I can provide that to you. And yet the average employee turnover rate of all US industries averages 15.1%. It costs employers 33% of a worker's annual salary to hire a replacement if that worker leaves. The replacement cost is $15,000 per person for an employee earning a median salary of $45,000 a year. Employees most committed to their organization through volunteer programs put in 57% more effort on the job and are 87% less likely to resign. Teams with high employee engagement rates are 21% more productive and have 28% less internal theft. Organizations with highly engaged employees had an average 3-year revenue growth 2.3 times greater than companies whose employees were only engaged at an average level. Over 50% of millennial employees that volunteer are very loyal toward their company, proud to work there, satisfied with their employer, and likely to recommend their company to a friend. Millennial employees who participate in a company's volunteer program are more than twice as likely to rate their work culture as very positive as compared to those who don't volunteer. 91% of Fortune 500 HR managers said that volunteering knowledge and expertise to a nonprofit can be an effective way to cultivate critical business and leadership skills, such as project management, communication, goal setting, and evaluation. These soft skills can make all the difference in cultivating leadership and planning for future success. Volunteering creates more engaged and fulfilled employees, which means businesses are more likely to retain their talent as well. At the federal level, the Fair Labor Standards Act doesn't mandate that companies pay their staffers for time not spent working, but they do, because the employees return better prepared to work. It took a long time for us to get to this point where we allow people time off, not working, because we understand the benefits of it. And taking a vacation is different than volunteering. They're not the same thing. And many of you know this. You volunteer for certain reasons. Vacations take you away, and volunteering embeds you in the community. Our city employees deserve the chance to be the best that they can be. Volunteer programs also help companies build trust with their customers, or in our case, the citizens of Green Bay, and respect the city's efforts to improve the community. And 40% of a company's reputation is determined by volunteering and corporate social responsibility. I love this city, and it deserves a great reputation. With that, I recommend the council defer this proposal to the Personnel Committee to further discuss details with those most appropriate.
for your testimony. Next we have Dave Boyce from 123 South Quincy Street.
Good evening. My name is Dave Boyce, 123 South Quincy, Green Bay. I came here to deliberately allow myself to be influenced by the people that came to speak on this particular subject. In a nutshell, I'm worried about the potential for abuse insofar as volunteering to promote political candidates. I'd like to see if there could be a specific exclusion so that they wouldn't just simply send out a lot of people to support the 2020 election or something like that. I'd like to see some real bona fide situations in which there's the one-to-one that this community so desperately needs. You know, everybody's in their own little pocket in the pool table of life, you know. So if it can be done in such a way that we could guarantee that there wouldn't be that kind of abuse, you know, I would support that. Thank you.
Good. Thanks for your testimony. Next we have Bronson Smith, 1525 Smith Street.
Bronson Smith, 1525 Smith Street, Green Bay. Volunteering is generally considered an altruistic activity where the individual or group provides services for no financial or social gain to benefit another person, group, or organization. The mayor and a group of aldermen and others want all city employees to have the ability to volunteer, quote unquote, up to 3 days each year while receiving full pay for their volunteered hours. The city employees that are pushing this call it a benefit to the city employees at large. But where's the benefit to the tax-paying city residents that are not asked to volunteer their tax dollars on an annual basis? No, they are forced by law to pay these taxes. They are required that are required to fund the city and pay these many individual salaries. Simple math shows us that if all city employees take part in this proposed program, that gives us approximately 12,000 cumulative hours multiplied by, let's say, a lowballed wage of $15 an hour. You get approximately $180,000 of tax dollars being paid out to employees that are volunteering at some nonprofit and not working for the city residents. But the real number is likely well over $200,000 since salaries are probably well over $15 an hour. If city employees want to volunteer, I applaud them. That's awesome. But volunteering should be on their own time and on their own dime, not the Green Bay taxpayers' time. Nor should the Green Bay taxpayers be forced to fund this fake volunteerism. I'm sorry. That warm fuzzy feeling that true volunteers get for helping out worthy organizations should not be paid for by the overtaxed residents of Green Bay. I have a better idea and a much better way to use those 12,000 potential hours and 180,000-ish tax dollars. Give those employees that don't have enough work orange vests, a shovel, and have them fill potholes with warm asphalt. Basically, every road in Green Bay has countless potholes, and the taxpayers' cars are being damaged by driving over these potholes, costing taxpayers hundreds of dollars in repairs. In closing, this is a massive, irresponsible waste of local tax dollars. Maybe the city needs to tax the people of Green Bay $200,000-ish a year less, since many in Green Bay think we have extra funds laying around to pay city employees to not do the jobs they were hired for. I say no, in all caps, to this proposal. Thank you.
Thanks for your testimony. And finally, we have Tony Ehrbar.
Sorry, I wore flip-flops. I came right from work. No disrespect. Just as I was listening to the last opinion, I did the math in my head, and if we have 100,000 people in Green Bay, and it's $180,000, that's $2 a person. I just think we can afford to pay $2 to help some of these amazing nonprofits that came here to talk in front of you. So my name is Tony Earbar. I own American Tent and Sidewall, which is over on 929 Cedar Street. I'm 100% in support of this, and if and when you guys pass this, I will institute it at my company as well for all 30 of my employees. So whatever you agree to do, I'll do it myself. But I ask you to refer to committee. I had a conversation with Alder Johnson today, with Alder Dorff, and after hearing that maybe this isn't a fully baked plan at this point, and we haven't heard from all parties. I think it's important that everyone, not everyone, because you can't bring all 100,000 people to the table, but enough people are brought to the table, the important people, to talk about how to implement this important issue. So on the surface, this is an amazing opportunity. It allows city's employees to engage in something they are passionate about, all for the betterment of the city. In my definition, and everyone is allowed their own definition of what local government should do, is to provide basic services, safety, and bettering our community. And I think this proposal would check box number 3 in spades. Additionally, as a business owner, I fully appreciate the effect that a program like this can have on enriching culture, more morale, and engagement of employees. For those who are familiar with Bob Chapman, he's the CEO and owner of Barry Waymiller, which owns PCMC here in town. He wrote a book, it's called Everyone Matters. It's one of my favorite books. And he argues that given the fact that employees spend 40 plus hours per week at work, we as employers have the biggest impact on the happiness, livelihood, and conversely stress that employees feel. There is no surprise that heart attacks raise a good % on Monday morning, and I'm sure if the firefighters were here, they would validate that for me. So I would argue that the city as an employer, like every other employer, and that this program would do just that. It would engage, energize, and enrich the lives of their employees. And I see that was clearly the intent. However, if you can't vote yes today, I strongly urge you to refer, as I think additional discussion must occur to ensure all voices are heard, evaluated, and that consensus can be reached. Thank you for the time.
Thanks for your testimony. And that is the last slip we have on that item. Motion made to close the floor by Alder from the 10th, second by Alder from the 7th. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor is closed. Alderman first.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have a few things that I'd like to say. First, I want to reflect on Cora commended the personnel department, talking about our employees are an investment in our future. And Katie talking about decreasing stress, reducing the risk of depression. This sort of volunteering embeds you in the community. I love that phrase. I wrote that down. Mr. Boyce, I agree with you. There should be some restrictions in this, definitely. That's one of the things I was thinking about. And Tony, bettering our community, engaging, energizing, and enriching. So when I first heard about this policy, I was very, very supportive of it. I thought, what a wonderful thing to give back to our community, because our employees serving our community, learning right on the ground, hand in hand, arm in arm, building a home for Habitat. That's a lot of work, by the way. I've been involved. It's not a vacation day. So I was very excited about this policy. I do not want to vote on this policy tonight, because since that time, I have gotten more negative calls than on anything up to and including the wheel tax from people. I think because there is not a deep understanding of what the intent is, I think there are some changes that we could make in the policy to make our community feel more accepting of this policy. I've got ideas that I've been writing down, I've been talking to people. So at this time, what I would like to do is make a motion to refer this back to the Personnel Committee and staff to work on it, to rework the policy, and to do more thinking about this policy.
Second. Seconded by Alder from the 7th. Motion made by Alder from the 1st to go back to committee. Seconded by Alder from the 7th. We have a few additional speakers here. Alder from the 10th.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. As far as referral, I agree with that right now. I had a chance to talk to the mayor and with Director Pauls, Joe, several times. And at first blush, there are some good things with this, but the big pushback that I got from citizens, I sent out maybe 30 emails to different citizens in my district. 14 voted for it, 12 didn't, so it was about 50-50, but I did have a negative pushback on that as well, and I think the big thing is the fact that, you know, we are a public entity, or as opposed to private, and I think the fact is that, you know, a lot of folks look at it that, you know, it's hard to separate that out. You know, taxes are being paid, but I think there are more things that we need to talk about with this policy. So I do go for a referral, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Alder. Just to note that the attachments should be working for our council.
Oh, thank you.
Give that a shot. Alder from the 7th.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll also support referral. I think talking with many in the community and doing an interview even, I think there is some misunderstanding and confusion out there. This is kind of a unique benefit, and I think we could rebrand it and get out some better information on it. I think we'd be doing ourselves and our community a service. I would just like to add that the purpose of this benefit is to attract and retain youthful workers, millennials. So I would caution us, there might be some tweaks we can do, but let's keep in mind what is being done out there, and we don't want to tweak this to where it is no longer effective. Then we haven't accomplished anything. The purpose of the benefit is to attract and retain millennials. So let's keep that in mind, and I think next month we can come back and we can rock and roll with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Alder from the 9th.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to try to speak to the referral specifically rather than on the policy itself. And specifically, I want to call out a few things that I hope that the committee does consider. And I will support referral, but again, I would hope that the committee would consider these things. And so the first thing that I would point out is I feel like we've failed to lay out an argument about what problem it is we're trying to fix. And so I think a lot of things have been tossed out that suggest that this helps employee morale. It might help us attract more qualified candidates, but what I would like to understand more accurately is the culture within City Hall, you know, at a level right now that we need some improvement, and are we having difficulty recruiting talent? And I'm not exactly sure how you would articulate that, but I think it's a strong argument that needs to be made. I would follow that up with, it seems to me then that we're potentially only offering one solution of a bigger problem. And so I would like to see the committee explore if those in fact are the problems that we're trying to solve. What other alternative solutions do we have that can address that? And I think personally I would favor a more widespread assessment that helps us understand, again, what that problem is that we're trying to fix. I feel like, data decisions will help promote more transparency for the public, which I feel is going to be something that is really critical to promote here, because government is not the same as the private sector. I understand the private sector is doing this, but we are not the same, and we have a different standard and litmus test that we need to meet. Some of the things that I would say that I'm not as concerned about, and that is the technical definitions of what volunteering are. I'm not as concerned about abuse of the program. Our city staff are adults. We need to treat them that way. If we treat them any other way, then I would expect childish behavior in return. And so if we can't treat our staff as adults and that we trust them to adhere to this program as we do their daily activities, I think we're in the wrong direction there. But ultimately, we need to get to the heart of how does this benefit the taxpayer? And that really hasn't been talked about. I think it's implied, happier employees create a better workplace, but how can we better articulate that? And the last thing that I would point out is I feel like there's been some discussion about how there's not a cost to this program. This is the easiest way for us to add a benefit that doesn't cost something. While I understand that there's not a fiscal impact for this program, there is a cost, and it's an opportunity cost. Which is basically, how money or other benefits are lost when pursuing a particular course of action instead of a mutually exclusive alternative. So essentially what this boils down to is really a discussion about, is this the way that we want to redistribute our resources? And I think that is the more appropriate discussion on this topic. Council reserves that right to say, yeah, I mean, 180,000 was thrown out. I don't know what that exact number is, but that to me is at the heart of this discussion. Not only the redistribution of resources, and can we get a better return on that investment by having happier employees. So again, I would encourage the committee to really evaluate those things before you bring it back here. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder from the 12th.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. All great points from Alderman Johnson. I agree with many, if not all of them. I guess I have one quick question for Director Falls. I understand that this item is currently for non-represented employees. So at some point, I assume represented employees are union employees. At some point, was there any conversation or thought to the fact that as union contracts come due and bargaining begins, that these employees are also going to want this benefit or expect it?
Director Falls.
Yeah, there's been thought about that, and this is the represented employees that are excluded in this policy would be police, fire, and transit. We do have some representative employees in DPW and parks. They are not included, to be excluded. And yes, there has been thought about that a bargaining unit may want to bargain this into their contract, and that has been thought about how we would negotiate back and forth. And that really gets down to what they're going to negotiate for, what we're going to give up, or excuse me, what they would give up to get this policy. So yes, that has been explored.
So thank you. Thank you. So right off the bat, we are segregating employees. Half are entitled to this benefit and the other half potentially in the future. And it's going to really open the city up to some weak standing when we negotiate and bargain these types of things. The other thought that I had was currently 500 employees at 24 hours per employee. That's 12,000 hours of labor that the city will be giving up for volunteering. And although very, very nice to think of our employees volunteering in the community, we are basically giving up 12,000 hours of our staff labor that, quite frankly, is very, very much needed within the city. Many of us went through the last budget, and we know that our resources are very thin right now. The staff hours are thin. We had to cut, I believe, 14 police officers. So I don't think we are in any position to give up basically 6 full-time employees worth of labor and transfer those duties or transfer the volunteer hours, if you will, to nonprofit or any other community organization, as much as that's a nice thought. So I think the thought is well, and the intent is okay. It's just that the amount of feedback I'm getting from constituents is very much overwhelmingly against, to the point that I don't recommend referral. I think we just need to kind of scrap the whole thing and repackage it and have the administration come forward with a new idea that really takes into account some of the things that each alder has been hearing from the public. The last thought I have, the term that we're trying to attract millennials, I'll be honest, that makes me uneasy, because it makes it seem like we're only trying to attract that certain group or that group in order to work for the city, that we gotta think outside the box. I would say that there are a lot of employees throughout the community that do not fit in the box of being a millennial. And if I hear that, if I'm one of those, in fact, I don't think I'm a millennial technically. So I don't like the thought that we're gearing all of our city, not all, but much of our city, HR push towards attracting millennials. We have a lot of employees who work for the city that are not millennials. So that just makes me a little uneasy. So I'm against referral. I'm not against, repackaging and reframing this, but I just think that there's so much that needs to be worked out on this, and I don't think referring back as is the appropriate thing. I think Mayor Gendrich, if you could, for me, look at this a little more closely and get more community feedback before you move forward. So I'm against referral. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder from 7.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd just like to bring up a few points. I know this is going to committee, so I don't want to talk about this too much, but there were a few points I think should be brought up. This is part of an ongoing process for the city. The city has been losing workers. That was a history that we've dealt with for the past decade here or so. A few years ago, we had Detman do a study, and they came back with, we need to up our salaries. And so we adopted that, and that was one step for retaining employees and encouraging the hiring of more newer employees. So this is now just the next step is what can we do with the benefits package. And when you look at benefits packages or what we can do to help, there isn't much that is going to be budget neutral. I mean, I would love to be able to offer a program where we help tap down student debt, which many companies are doing. We can't do that. We've got no money for that. The only benefits we have that are budget neutral are sick days, personal days, vacation days. And those are all paid days. And those are days that are covered. You could add up those hours and say those are lost hours, and I disagree. There is no effect for the taxpayer because staff works their schedule so that services are still provided. And I think this is just one more thing where services will still be provided. There is no cost effect to the taxpayer. So this is an ongoing thing of what we can do. This has been something we've been dealing with as a council for a while. How we can retain the employees we have, how we can attract new employees. And your workforce generally, we're aging. The people that we're going to be hiring, in all practical purposes, are going to be younger people. That's a demographic. That's the way things are working out. So that's what we have to look at, and that's what we have to prepare for. And I know this is a benefit that I've never heard of before. I think it's rather innovative, but it seems to be working in some municipalities and in business. So I think it's definitely worth us to look at. And I don't think that we need to do a lot of tweaking. I think we need to do a lot of getting the information out there, just where this is coming from and what it is we're doing and how we're doing it. I think kudos to Joe and everybody that worked on this. I think the policy itself is pretty airtight. Like I said, we might want to do a little tweaking about what nonprofits might be out of bounds or whatever. We can look at that. But in general, I think we got a good program here. I think this is something that current employees would also value. I think the estimate was looking at business and other municipalities, you get like 25% participation. So, I would just also like to add, the reason fire and transit and those others are not included now is they already are under contract. We can't include them. They have their contract. And so it's up to them to decide if they want to be a part of this or not. But we could not include them now if we wanted to. They're under contract. So I just want to put there a little bit on a few things. And I don't want to go, like I said, go too much into this because it's going to, I think I support going back and there'll be more discussion there. So thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Alder from the 4th.
Thank you, Your Honor. I approve this at the committee level, and I applaud the nonprofits. If we were to take away everything that they have provided this community, it would be a shell of itself, and we would be much worse off for it. And I like the idea of this, but at the same time, I have had a lot of blowback. I have had 0 calls or comments or anything from anyone that's in favor of this. 0. And usually I get at least a mix, but I've had nothing. I've had people tell me that they volunteer for their offices, but they volunteer for free, no pay. They and their staff go to a function all day long, and whatever they're volunteering at, they're not getting paid. And so they wonder why we're paying employees. But I agree with Alder Johnson. Are there other alternative programs out there besides this that we could be looking at as part of a benefits package? And that's what this is. We've had a lot of good employees leave, a lot. And the police department, I know, for one, is having a tough time recruiting. Would something or something like this be something that would attract them? I don't know, and that's why I would hope that staff would have some alternatives available for us. that they would have some statistics on how difficult it has been to attract employees and what kind of employees. I mean, is it just police or is it across the board? We want people to come and live in Green Bay. We want them to be here. We want them to put down roots. We want their children to stay here. We want this to be a growing community, and that has not been happening at a very good rate. It's been really, really low. Less than 1%, I believe. And if we're going to attract people here, we have to have things in place to do that. And if this is one of them, I think it deserves to be looked at and looked at in depth. And Mr. Ehrbar, I applaud you. That's a huge commitment for a private sector company to commit that amount of time with your employees. And whether this goes through or not, I kind of hope you still do it. But that's up to you.
I'll tell you I won't, but I probably will.
Corey may just go back a little bit to get you to go through with that. But regardless, I think there's a lot of ground that needs to be plowed and worked over yet for this to be able to come back to council. And I'm in favor of referral. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Alder from the second.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to keep this short. I supported this when I first heard about it. I realized that it's a fairly new benefit, whether you're talking about private or public. I do support it going back to committee. Some of the people that did reach out did have concerns regarding the fact there weren't really any restrictions on places that could be volunteer. Workers could volunteer at. So, yeah, I absolutely support it going back to committee and working on this a little bit more.
Thank you. Seeing no other requests to speak.
My light's on, sir.
Oh, apologies. Alder from the 11th.
Thank you, Mayor. In my district, I immediately feedback of they didn't support it. And I think some of the comments were that volunteering is volunteering. You don't get paid. And that was the main thrust of all the people that called me. Some people, got kind of hot about it as far as, they thought it was just not the right thing to do. They're trying to redefine volunteering, and they resented it, I think. That was the feedback I got from the people in my district that called me, and other people as well. I can't support it at this time. That's all comments.
Thanks, Alder. Any other additional comments? Alder from the 3rd.
Just a question, Mayor. Do you see my light on?
No.
It's not? Okay.
It
Do you have an eye?
Actually, it just came out. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm against referral. I am not going to be turned into a used car salesman and sugarcoat this. This is not the way to attract new individuals to our city. Maybe we should be looking at other issues like crime, public housing, that's bringing in problems to our city, and that's a fact. Back in the 90s, when I applied to be a policeman, we had thousands that would apply for Green Bay, which probably over 1,000 people, maybe 1,500, and they were hiring 2 or 3. Now, what do we have? 100 people applying, 120 for 6 or 7 jobs. Times have changed. You got to look at the media. The media is not helping society. Not at all. All they do, basically, the majority of their reporting is bad news. It's a shame. But that's a different subject. We can't do much about the media, can we? Scannell states that all we have to do is tweak it. Let's tweak it tonight. Let's vote on it tonight. I guess what are you scared of? I'm not. I'm ready to vote. But I'm not going to try to sugarcoat this. I don't think that's right. I think it's dishonest. Maybe we should basically scratch it and start over. There has been a pushback. Huge, and that's why we want to refer it back. And we have people from the audience that I don't know how they were invited, but they got some connection here when we're at first name basis. I
don't believe in this. I think we should be looking at other things to help our city. What can we do to bring officers, more applicants to our community? Maybe look at our inner city. What's causing the problems? You look at the engineering department years ago, we gave them a pay raise. We still can't keep them. I had an argument with one of the aldermen back in the day who was on personnel, that if we give pay raises to our engineers, we're going to keep them. Well, we can't. So that doesn't work. You think this is going to work? 3 days? Let's do it right then. Let's give them a month off with pay to volunteer if we really want to turn the city around. According to the information I've received tonight, Mayor. But I don't think this works. I'm not going to support it. Let's vote on it now. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Motion on the floor is referral to committee. There are no other requests to speak here.
Can we use the blood?
Sure. All in favor, will signify by saying aye. Vote aye. Opposed will vote no. Board. Ayes, 4 noes. The motion is successful and the item has been referred to committee. And what are your wishes regarding item 4? Alderman 11.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess my concern is the closing on Friday, that there will be nobody in the offices on Friday afternoon. I think if we're looking at reducing down the number of staff, we couldn't have one person in the offices to take up the issues that might be coming forward in the business of the city. I think that's my main concern, that it's going to be shut down. I think the city and the county, they do a lot of things hand in hand if they do all their business, Monday through Friday, basically 8 to 4:30. That's my main concern, that we will be shut down. Is that right across the board as far as the Department of Public Works? They'll be off as well. All the trucks will be moving. Is that correct?
Alder Grenier, Director Grenier, sorry.
To the extent that we can model what's happening at City Hall with our remote locations, we will do that. But with Public Works, we do have on-call. We do have custodian coverage, which is our on-call answering service as well. So any problems that arise, we do have the ability to dispatch and take care of. That currently happens nights and weekends, so this would be no different.
That's my question.
Thank you, Alder. Alder from the first.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to speak in favor of this policy. It's something that I experienced when I worked for the school district. We went to this summer schedule and had some concerns similar to what Alder Vanderleest had just mentioned. And as it turns out, Green Bay gets pretty dead on Friday afternoons and Saturdays, and I've lived here a long time. And I think expanding the hours is a fabulous idea, going 7:30 to 5. I believe that's correct. During the week, we need to just really publicize this, put the hours out everywhere. But I think it gives people an opportunity to get in and to do their business. And I think there's just not a lot that happens on Friday afternoons. And I did talk to some members of city staff, and that was affirmed, that they said, yeah, it's pretty slow. So I like what this is doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Alder from the 12th.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I agree with Alder Dorff. I'm in favor of this. Let's be honest, we get very limited amounts of good weather in Green Bay. That might be a reason why we can't attract workers, I don't know. But in summer months, for the benefit to families to be able to get outside and enjoy, the long weekend, I think that is a great benefit to provide our employees. And I also agree with Alder Dorff that we have to publicize this, and I think we all know that. If we put a public relations blitz out there, if you will, and let people know
then we could really, a year or two of this, I think by then the public will really get to know. And then if some people show up at City Hall and we're not open, then we can use that as we can then explain it to them at that time. So I'm definitely in favor of this, and thank you for everyone who brought this forward. I think it's a great idea.
Thanks, Alder from the 9th.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question for Director Faulds. For staff that we have that may not want to take advantage of this policy, maybe it's problematic for them to come in earlier or stay later on those other 4 days of the week, can we make accommodations for them to maintain their regular work schedule? Director Faulds.
Yeah, we can accommodate them the best we can. I think they'll have to talk to the supervisor and work with the coworkers to make sure we have coverage for the summer hours. When it comes to Friday afternoons, we do want for safety and security reasons to close at 11:30. We also want to make sure that our hourly employees are complying with wage and hour laws, that they're not putting overtime that could increase costs to the city. But they can receive approval from department heads and HR to work later on Fridays if they want to make up the time. But yes, we can accommodate employees. They can talk to supervisors and the department heads to accommodate their schedule.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. The motion on the floor is to approve item 4. There are no further requests to speak. So seeing no further requests, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The item is approved. On to S, report of the Sustainability Commission.
Motion to approve.
May 2019. Motion to approve made by Alder from the 7th, second by Alder from the 1st. To approve report S, which is the report of the Sustainability Commission from the meeting on May 8th, 2019. Any other items?
Yeah, question, Mayor, on that.
Alder from the 11th.
I was just wondering, is it legal to ban the product that they're talking about here on for the Sustainability Committee? In other words, I think the city of Green Bay uses tar and not too much type material. Is that what they're referring to here?
Alder from the 7th.
What is the product that they're referring to there?
It's a pretty nasty tar. We didn't at the commission. We weren't aware of who was using this in the area. We just had noticed that there were many municipalities in Wisconsin that are banning it. It's a pretty nasty business. So we thought there's asphalt that can be used, and there's another. I think it's I don't know if they call it tar. There are other products that can be used. One of them is actually a little more expensive but lasts longer, and asphalt is actually cheaper. So there are products that we can urge people to use to be more environmentally safe.
Director Grenier, do we use this product that he's talking about right now?
Director Grenier.
We are not using coal tar based. What Alder Scannell is referring to is either asphalt based or acrylic based, silicone based sealants. And the sealants that we're using are probably in the 70% asphalt and 25% polymer. So it's a modified polymer asphalt mix, and the polymer is typically a silicone. So it's a rubberized asphalt mix. This won't impact how DPW conducts our business at all.
It's really not an issue for the city of Green Bay right now.
For our staff and what we do, no. I think this may have a bigger impact on other people within the community. If there are seal coaters who come in and do private parking lots, for instance, and they're using the coal tar based sealant, it would impact them. So, folks who are having their driveways seal coated or parking lots or things of that nature, this type of ban would stop those applications within the city. But as far as what DPW is doing, it won't impact us at all.
Alder from the 7th.
Yes, and this was brought up at the commission that this would affect mostly private businesses. Sorry. Time to take a pill. But that private businesses usually work a broader area, and so that if they have, because we had discussed about creating a sunset area for businesses to unload this material, and we thought, well, if they need to do that, they can do that in other communities. This is very nasty stuff, and that they can use more environmentally protective sealants within our city. So this does affect private business, but I don't think it affects them too detrimentally because there are other communities where they will not have this kind and they can use that product. And hopefully when we will be encouraging more and more of the private industry to get more and more environmentally on board, because what they do affects our city, and it's not good, this stuff. So that's why we went with this. Thank you.
Seeing no additional speakers, all in favor of the report will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
No.
The ayes have it. On to receive and place on file.
Motion to receive and place.
Motion made by Alderman the 7th, seconded by Alderman the 3rd, to receive and place on file the municipal court report for April 2019. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been received and placed on file. The report of the Finance Committee, item 6, will be taken up as a part of the committee of the whole. What are your wishes regarding this report? Motion made by Alderman 7th, seconded by Alderman 1st, to approve report U, which is the report of the Finance Committee from the meeting on May 8th, 2019. Any additional items under this report you wish to handle separately? Hearing none, all in favor of approving that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved. We are back to item 4 from the Park Committee, May 14, 2019. What are your wishes regarding this item? Motion made by Alderman the 7th. Seconded by Alderman the 8th to approve. Alderman the 12th.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. If I could, I believe that this item we could go into closed session for, but item 9, the one that I sent to the protection policy, is an item that is not up for closed session. So I'm curious if we could move item 9 up before this item, and then do all the closed sessions. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Attorney Chavez?
It's just you all and how you want to take it, but those 3 items are linked. All of them pertain to the tribe. And so if the discussions in closed session will affect the decision on that item from P&T, then the recommendation would be to hold it until after we come out of closed session.
I don't know. I mean, I think that this item was noticed for discussion in open session, so I would feel comfortable as the person who brought it forward to, although they're related, what I'm proposing doesn't necessarily need to be discussed in closed session. So I would prefer to have this in open, but right now it would be prior to going into closed session for the other 3 items, I believe.
It is up to this council on whether you want to discuss this in open session. The only thing I will say is that it could potentially go to the negotiations that are brought up in the other ones.
Sure. I think if it's if the council agrees, I'd like to take item 9 of protection policy now. I'll make a motion to that effect, and then if we start talking of things that really should be discussed in closed session, and I can't imagine that we would, then perhaps Attorney Chavez could let us know, and we'll save those conversations.
Motion has been made to take up item 9, seconded by, or motions have been made by Alderman the 12th, seconded by Alderman the 10th to take up item 9. Alderman Seventh.
Yeah, I would rather we took it up after. I want to do this in open session too, but the discussions in closed session, I think, relate to this item and will help us discuss this item afterward. Because depending upon some of the things what action we might take will directly relate to this. And it would be good to know what action we're going to be taking as a council before we discuss this. It'd make it much easier for me to discuss it if I know what action we're doing first in closed session. So I would rather we did it after, we could make the motion for that. Amend your motion, if you wouldn't mind.
Alderman 12.
Yeah, the issue that I'm running into is, quite frankly, a timing issue. Because as we're getting notices of what we're getting notices on, the more that we discuss this in closed session, and the more people who live in these areas are not aware of the situation, then I'm getting increasingly uneasy. So I get what you're saying, Alder Scannell. I just think that there's a statement that I would like to read in open session. I would like to know what our options are, and then we can go from there. I don't think I'm going to say anything that's going to jeopardize anything that I haven't already stated publicly. I've been rather consistent on this, the need for the public to be informed, because when the public is informed, then good policy can begin. So if I could, and all due respect to you, I would like to keep this agenda item before the closed sessions. I'd like to read a statement and then open the floor if anyone wants to speak. And then I think what I'm proposing is rather modest and pretty straightforward and rather reasonable. So for those reasons, I'd like to have this discussion in open session before the closed session items.
Alderman First.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to agree with Alder Scannell, because my lady had been on actually, to say I agree we should do this in open session, and I'd really like to wait until after the closed session to do it. So that is the way that I would be voting. Because I don't want to do it right now, I want to wait till after. But it definitely can be done in open session. Thank you.
Alderman Sixth.
Yes, I have some people here who want to speak on item 4. They've been sitting here all evening, waiting, and actually some already left because, yeah, it's getting late. So that's, I'm going to vote no. I would like number 4 and put up first. Good, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. A few lights on any additional?
Yep.
Sounds Alderman 7.
I would just say that if the alder from District 12 would like to make a, read a statement and so on, I have no problem with that. If after a closed session, I feel the need, or anyone feels a need to discuss it, we can always reconsider and bring it up. So I'm fine if you're more comfortable with doing that before. That's fine. I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Alderman 12.
Yeah, just simply, again, we're in a position where a year into this, and I agree with you, Mayor, we need to turn a page with our relationship with the Oneida Nation. I've been saying that from the very beginning of my term, even while campaigning. So in an effort to turn this corner, I do feel it necessary to just read something. It's nothing, terribly official, but it's just my personal feelings that I would like to, if you could. I mean, I don't know if we have to make a motion to move this item, or if I could just state this before we go into closed session.
Move forward with your statement, Alder.
Okay. Right now? Okay. I was going to share this at the Protection and Policy Committee, but we had a good discussion otherwise. So I'll begin by stating that each alderperson faces important issues within their districts which can present challenges. It isn't always easy to decide the best course of action or how to move forward. And given we are public officials, our actions, words, and decisions are rightfully open to criticism. So my agenda item comes before you after nearly a year of contemplating the best time and most appropriate manner to carry forth with this discussion in my desire to do so in open session in front of those by whom we have been elected to serve. I have now entered my 8th year in public office with 4 years on the Brown County Board and 3 years on the City Council behind me. Through all those years, and even more so today, I have prided myself on being a fair, reasonable, and hardworking servant to and representative of all people. During all of my 7+ years in public office, I have treated all with dignity and respect, and I don't shy away from uncomfortable conversations on matters of public interest. In fact, I've stressed the need for open and transparent government and believe the more awareness the public has of an important issue, the more likely we are to continue to and build a strong, inclusive community, one in which we all can be proud to call home. That, after all, is one of the core reasons and purposes of government. However, on the issue of tax-exempt federal trust properties, the public has questions we must answer. I carry an extremely high level of respect and appreciation toward the Oneida Nation, their representatives, and tribal members. Their positive impact on our community and the ways they contribute to our culture and economy are both tremendous and undeniable. I sincerely believe this agenda item is a necessary and vital step toward clearing up some of the confusion my constituents have conveyed to me during the months of the 2018 City Council campaign, as well as during nearly every single month that has followed. Furthermore, I think this agenda item is an even greater step toward initiating discussions of a shared service or intergovernmental agreement between the City of Green Bay and the Oneida Nation, and will allow public input into the process. It is vital that the City of Green Bay and the Oneida Nation work together, and it is my wish that we restart a community conversation and work towards a solution. And above all, I want to convey that this agenda item has been brought forward from a position of optimism and hope. It is my sincere belief that when the public is fully engaged in this process, and when the City of Green Bay and the Oneida Nation collaborate on answering questions and communicating joint goals, the residents on the far west side, all residents, are going to reap the benefits of an incredible partnership. That's all. Thank you for listening. I needed to state that publicly.
Thank you, Alder. Now we entertain a motion to open the floor. Motion made by Alder from the 10th, second by Alder from the 7th to open the floor. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor is open.
This agenda item, I don't know if anyone's speaking, but
Oh, I thought you mentioned.
no, if someone was interested.
Number 4.
We do have Tom Slaughter listed.
I intended to speak to item U6. Would you prefer that I speak now?
Yeah.
Attorney Johnson.
To clarify what we are doing, because there is closed session language for the Park Committee item 4, as well as V1 and U6, those items are all going to be taken up at the same time. So you guys can hear everybody speak at the same time. Just so we go into closed session, you will take all the items up separately when you come back out into open session.
So you want me to go ahead now?
Go ahead, sir. Thank you.
I'm Tom Sladek, 2634 Sequoia Lane, Green Bay, Wisconsin. Hi, Council. A lot of familiar faces here. I'd like to share with you a number of points related to item U6 and the item for the council as a whole. First, I'd like to start with a concept to share with you. And this is a concept that I believe in and that I have found in over 6 years of representing the far west side that the people in the neighborhoods believe in. And that concept is that all parcels in a neighborhood should be subject to the same ordinances. enforced by the same government, and that being a government in which everybody has a voice. And I want to point out that when parcels go into federal trust, that doesn't happen. Now you've got some parcels that are not under the authority of a government in which everybody has a voice. I had a lot of experience and contacts from people in the affected neighborhoods trying to understand why the property down the block or the property across the street wasn't being held accountable to the same rules that their property was. And they weren't. Some of you remember I brought a lot of examples to the council. Under the service agreement, it just was not working. And it creates uncertainty. So I had a call from one constituent who was thinking about adding a sunroom or Four Seasons room on the back of her house. She wanted to know what the tribe could do with the property behind her house, which was in trust. And I told her, I can't answer that because it's out of the city's reach. Her response was, I'm not going to invest in this house if I don't know what's going to happen on the neighboring property. So uncertainty hurts property values. It keeps people from purchasing, or it keeps people from improving or maintaining or investing in their houses. So my message to you is you need to not weaken the city's resolve to resist properties going into federal trust. And I'm concerned that if you step into a negotiation, you might do just that. Just a couple of other quick points. One is an offer. I would be perfectly willing to sit down with any one of you and spend whatever time you care to take to share with you my experiences and learning about this matter. Just call and we'll set up a time. However much time you want, I'll be happy to offer it. I'll tell you everything I learned and everything I experienced. And my last point is I want to challenge the need for you to go into closed session on this. You've all been talking about closed session a lot as if it's a foregone conclusion. But you still have a decision to make here. And I don't think you need to go into closed session, at least unless you did something in a previous closed session that I don't know about. I don't think you're currently in negotiations, so you don't need to talk about negotiation strategy. So what is it that causes you tonight on this matter to have your discussion in closed session? I think people want to hear if you support or don't support certain things in this matter. They want you on record to say it in front of the cameras here. So I'd just like to offer up to you that I think it's unnecessary and might even be a foul of the law for you to go into closed session on this matter tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your testimony. And we also have Joellen Kaczynski. And this is on item 4 from the Park Committee. State your address for us.
Good evening, Joellen Kaczynski, 1861 East Shore Drive. And I'm here to speak on behalf of the neighbors that live in East Shore Circle. And it came to my attention that there's a possibility of Bay Beach buying a residential property at the end of East Shore Circle and perhaps tearing it down and it becoming a parking lot or volleyball pits or something for Bay Beach. And we just felt that the neighbors that are living in East Shore Circle, which is really a well-established, quaint cul-de-sac, to suddenly have a house be torn down and replaced with something that would be very public is just not fair to those neighbors. And I'm pretty sure everyone in this room, if you had a parking lot suddenly appear on the side of your house, you probably wouldn't be happy either. So I want people to just take that into consideration when that negotiation comes forth. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Question?
Question?
Oh. I didn't know that was part of it.
Thank you for coming and sharing your testimony. One question I did
Yes.
have for you, you had alluded to, I guess, you had heard that there were intended uses for that property.
Yes.
I mean, are those just rumors circulating amongst the community, or do you know the origin of those rumors?
I actually spoke to one of the neighbors at one time, and he talked about that there was maybe a possibility that that was going to happen. He was very kind of nondescript about it, and I suggested, I said, well, maybe they're going to use it for like a Bay Beach office and keep it intact. So, it was brought to my attention via phone call that it may not, it might be torn down, this home.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. I mean, I think at this point, those are rumors. And so I just want to make that point of clarification for you. There has been no commitment to an intended use of that property.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a Seth Colmer. I'm not clear if you would like to speak. Okay. Good. You can just state your address as well.
Seth Colmer, 1737 East Shore Circle. I am also speaking on behalf of the property that is being purchased or intended to be purchased at the end of East Shore Circle. I live 3 properties down from the current city lot that exists already. Most of the neighbors in the circle are extremely concerned about the possibility of the city taking ownership of this lot. We feel that it's going to devalue our homes by bringing the park closer. We're going to be losing tax revenue by taking a property off the market already. Devaluing our homes would only reduce the tax revenue to the city further. Additionally, we have crime problems already due to Bay Beach. There is already an established berm, fence. There's a delineation between the park and our neighborhood. There would be no delineation between the park and our neighborhood, and no physical barrier between the two. We have people that trespass down our street. We've had break-ins. I had to purchase a home security system. We brought it up to city members in the past. I think the police are just taxed. I don't think they have the resources to take on what's going on at Bay Beach at the moment as a possibility. It's a great concern to us, to the point where neighbors are considering moving. We're uprooting our lives due to this. I know that there are rumors, as it put. My understanding is the rumors are originating from members within inside the city themselves, as people that have come up with potential ideas for what it could be. Picnic areas, sand volleyball courts, down to a parking lot. A parking lot which would also include potentially routing a new park entrance from the end of our circle to the Bay Beach parking lot, which would completely disrupt our traffic patterns. Already people park up and down that street freely. It's difficult to get in and out of our driveways with that amount of parking. If you increase traffic in that area, it's just asking for an accident, in our opinion. So, thank you.
Thanks for your testimony. And then finally we have John LeFave. State your address as well.
Okay, 1731 East Shore Circle. I'm here opposing it, the purchase of that property. Little background, I've lived there for 48 years, and the city has made a lot of nice improvements in the park, and the Friends really enjoy it. It's been made into a cul-de-sac, which eliminated drive-through property and provided parking for 20-30 cars for Bay Beach, which has not been a problem for me. The other thing, it made a nice walkway instead of a street connecting the sanctuary to Bay Beach. That's a walkway with flowering trees along the side. The edge of Bay Beach Park has a little berm-like area with shrubbery and trees along it, which kind of separates the neighborhood. So that's very nice. The other thing that I've looked into a little bit, I looked online and I looked up the Friends. And the Friends
there's a plan for Bay Beach that's like a 10-year plan. And there's nothing in the plan for changes to the east boundary of Bay Beach. And the plan has room for parking and more picnic areas. So I questioned the Friends in a way. I think they had, on their website, they also had all the proposals and phases for Bay Beach. I thought that was very good, and I think their priorities and alternatives could be a little bit better. And the city also is involved in that same way, is accepting. The city has a little bit of expense with lost tax base, and probably would have development and maintenance expenses and so forth with Bay Beach. You do get the land for free from the Friends, which if you want free land, we have an island for you. Renard Island is bayfront property, which of course is undesirable, but it is still waterfront property that could be used for walkways and park benches and such, and perhaps a viewing areas and picnic tables. So I think there are alternatives, and my major objection is there's no plan. I would like to see a plan, and I would like to see you not approve this until you have more specifics on it. And also for the same reasons I mentioned about the Friends, there are alternatives, priorities, cost. It's okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Oh, there's one, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
State your name and address, sir.
Yes, my name is Alan Hamir at 1002 Trailwood Drive in West De Pere. I am a member of Friends of Bay Beach, and Friends of Bay Beach is in support of acquisition of this property. As a member of Friends of Bay Beach, one of the things that we've always said, personally for me, is this is a treasure for the city. It has become a destination for the region. As a member of the Preble Optimist Club, on the second Tuesday of every August, we sponsor from 10 a.m. till noon the free Zip and Pip and Ride. And so it's amazing the number of people, the number of kids, and as members of the Optimist Club, we talk with people, and they're very thankful, and they're coming in from all over the state to experience Bay Beach. Part of what we do at Friends of Bay Beach is to also, I think we're on a track where we can keep the price of the tickets at 75 cents. And so when I talk with people, families, when they say, you know, Bay Beach is such a great place to take families, because for a family of four, for $20, you can have a great experience, build memories, and still feed the family hot dogs and have, as I said, great fun. If you take them to the Dells, wonderful place. I've been there, taken my family there. Quite a bit more. If you take them to Six Flags, even higher. If you take them to Walt Disney or Disney World, Epcot, it's even higher. So we're landlocked, and sometimes opportunities come up. And so Friends of Bay Beach, we don't dictate, you know, what the parks, they get to do what they want to do, reporting to the Parks Committee and then the council as far as, you know, what they want to do. We provide funds, and I'm hoping some of you have been out to Bay Beach and taken a look at the construction of the big wheel. It's going to be phenomenal, and we truly feel that it will probably generate an additional 300,000 to 400,000 attendees, new attendees, because of it. And so with this opportunity, we're flexible, and those are rumors, because even, you know, at Friends of Bay Beach, at our board meetings, there are no specific plans for that. But I truly believe, and someone can confirm this, but I think Bay Beach already has one of the lots. Is that true, Dan? We own one of the lots already in that residence. So it's there. Again, we don't know what we'll do, but there was a 20-year plan purchased by the city, and all we're doing as Friends of Bay Beach, as business leaders, community leaders, interested people, we're going to take that 20-year plan, and we've been able to compress it to 7 years, to probably less than 5 years, where Bay Beach will be able to be self-sustaining, and in a few years, I think that extra money will then go back into the city coffers for general use. But you've been generous and gracious to allow us to work with the Bay Beach staff, the Parks Committee, the council, to continue to create Bay Beach as a wonderful, wonderful jewel in the Midwest, and specifically the city of Green Bay. Thank you.
One quick question for the gentleman. Sir, Alderman the 11th.
Yes.
Is the Friends of Bay Beach, are they proposing to purchase this property and donate it to the city? Is that the
At the last board meeting, right now, because we spent quite a bit for the wheel, at the board meeting, we did say that if needed, Friends of Bay Beach would put $25,000 down, and if based on projections, depending on the projections for the year, if it's under the projection, that Friends of Bay Beach would put in another $75,000. Otherwise, we would take it, from the proceeds and the revenue from the park this year. So we are committed to put some skin in the game for this.
So you're putting 100,000? Is that what you're selling us?
That's what we're saying.
100,000 towards this purchase?
Yes, and again, it's $25,000 that we put on as a motion, and pending the results of the year, we feel that if it comes under their budgeted dollars, that Friends of Bay Beach would kick in another $75,000, so it would be a commitment of $100,000.
I know that last fall, the city council bonded for $5 million for Bay Beach for the upgrade of the front of the sand beach and things like that, and they did it in the respect of first 5 years they'll make interest-only payments of that $5 million, and then year 6 then they'll first start making a principal payment. So Bay Beach, as far as the finances, I think they're quite strapped at this time as far as their commitments, as far as, they bonded the $5 million. They're going to do some parking lot work, and they're going to do some of the other work. So I think the Bay Beach has quite a task ahead of them, and I think they're still, a couple years into the paying for the zip and pippin. And the proposal was that they bonded the $5 million so they could do some of these projects, but they still have to pay that $5 million.
Yes.
They still have to work on that $5 million plus other debts that they do have.
Yes.
So I think that Bay Beach is not out of the red.
Oh, absolutely not. And again, with your generosity and the commitment that the Parks Committee and the council has done, has allowed us to be in a position where we will be in the red. I mean, we will be in the black at some point in time. But again, with an additional 300,000 new attendees, that's why we also did commit to several $100,000 to put in a temporary parking lot to be able to park these people. Because in the past, when we've had certain events, there was no parking. When an opportunity came up years ago through a grant from I think it was the EPA, they said, we want to give you $500,000 for a parking lot. Well, in the plan, the parking lot was way down the road, but how do you take a gift of $500,000? So we put that money in and put that part of the plan, 7 years down the line and put it forward. And so now we at least have parking spaces. And in the last recent years, we put the train that's out to the west, and we just have planned. But again, nothing. Some things are set in stone. And again, that's the park committee. That's Bay Beach. doing this. It's not Friends of Bay Beach. They kind of tell us, here's kind of what we're looking for. Can you help us out? We look at it from a business standpoint. You know, is it profitable? You know, what's your plan? What's your maintenance? You know, are you getting multiple bids? Can we? And I know that some of our board members, they were able to negotiate a great price on that wheel. And I tell you what, when that's operational and that lighting package comes up, I think everyone in this room and many of the citizens of Green Bay is gonna be so proud of that park. They will call it that's my park. I truly believe that.
Thank you very much. I wanted to commend you on the Friends of Bay Beach, all the things that they've done for Bay Beach. I know that it's a very positive input.
Thank you. Thank you.
Alder Short.
Thank you, Your Honor. Al, I'd like to ask.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks for coming in. I've heard you speak before, and I understand what the Friends do, and we appreciate a lot of the work that you've done. I think it really just, you know, I've been talking to the alder in this district and more or less some of the neighbors, and just, you know, it's an age-old thing. In fact, I had to deal with it with the clinic tonight, just talking about the neighborhood versus, you know, a project or a group or something that they're dealing with. So, with that being said, I'm not against, you know, a lot of what Bay Beach represents and the tourist draw and all that, but I'm concerned a little bit about the neighborhood as well. So, maybe when we get out of closed session, I'd like to talk to Director Ditchite about this as well, and just try to maybe get a little more background on this. I realized I missed committee, but I just want to get a little more clarification. But I just want to let you know that my concern also is with the neighborhood as well, and just to make sure that, you know, that works a little bit as well.
Yeah. And like I said, Friends of Bay Beach, we're always going to be there to support the park. So whatever this governing body decides, we're still going to be there to help the park however we can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close the floor. Second.
Motion made to close the floor by Alder from the 7th, seconded by Alder from the 3rd. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor is closed. So the following items have been noticed for closed session. Items Q4, V1, and U6. So we will take these items together. For the committee of the whole, we will be taking up the notices of decision from the U.S. Department of Interior regarding the intent to take land into trust, and item 6 from the finance report pertaining to initiating negotiations for intergovernmental agreement with the United Nations, including revisiting the following notices of decision from the U.S. Department of Interior regarding the intent to take land into trust and the parcels identified. For item Q4, we'll be considering purchase of 1705 East Shore Circle, parcel 21-439 for the expansion of Bay Beach Amusement Park. I will entertain a motion to move into closed session.
Second.
Motion made by Alder from the 1st, second by Alder from the 7th. Excuse me. Alder from the 12th.
Yes, I would like to ask for separation. I'm in favor of closed session for the park item, not in favor of closed session for the other items. I'd like to ask the city attorney to provide what she is able to in closed session for the sake of public notice, and I would like to vote on whether to enter into closed session for those two items concerned to fee to trust land. I don't know how that happens, but I'd like to ask for separation so we can vote on going into closed session on the two items specific to fee to trust.
Making a motion to separate the items.
Yeah, second.
Second by Alder from the 8th. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Me. Your Honor, no, separate. To talk about separation.
Alder from the 7th.
Okay. I would like, if I'm not mistaken, there are, concerning the United, there are items that are in litigation that we need to take in closed session. So I don't know how that might spill over. And certainly once we come out, anything that did spill over, we can divulge in open session. But I would like to take them all into closed session to cover our bases, to make sure that if we need to speak freely, we can. So I would prefer we take this all in closed session, and when we come out, we can separate and talk, put everything that needs to go into open session into open session.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, I think we just voted on
separating them, correct? We took the vote already, and it was, again, it was in favor. I think it was like 4-2. The two of you.
Let's use the board.
Just a point of clarification, was the motion to separate the items to vote separately on the items to move into closed session?
Great. Yeah, I don't think, I would like to ask the city attorney to share what she can in open, I don't believe that we need to carry on much of the discussion in closed session. Now, if the council disagrees with me, they can vote to go into closed session, no problem, but I want to be noted publicly that I would like to keep this in open session. And I'd like to vote, a roll call vote to reflect that.
Attorney Chavez.
Okay, so if we are going to separate this into two votes, what we're really doing is going into closed session once and then coming back out and going into closed session the second time. So if that's what you guys want to do, that is what you are voting on right now. If you want to go in once and discuss everything, then we're doing it all at once.
Alderman. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, let's just handle the parks item. We're dragging that item into a much bigger discussion. Let's handle that one first, resolve it, then come back and discuss the much more in-depth item that could take us quite a while yet. So let's just handle the parks item. I think that's what Alderman 12 was trying to get to. Let's just handle that item.
Okay.
I can come back.
So the motion has been made to go into closed session for item Q4. Seconded, motion made by Alderman the 8th, seconded by Alderman the 9th to move into closed session regarding item Q4. Will Alderman the 8th read the language?
The council may convene in closed session pursuant to sections 19.85, section 1, subsection E, Wisconsin statutes for purposes of deliberating or negotiating the sale of public properties, investing in public funds, or conducting other specified public business as necessary for competitive or bargaining reasons. The council may thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 19.82, section 2, Wisconsin statutes, to report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda.
Please use the board to vote. And we're voting on the motion to go into closed session for item Q4. Motion passes on a vote of 10-2. We are in closed session.
I'm not sure on what. That's what I'm supposed to say. Very nice. Yeah, this is Yeah, well, is that really why you kind of, you know, I'd be frightening if it were I was drunk. Yeah.
He did actually do that. That was the one of the few times he was at my case, which I hate because it's so crowded and obnoxious. And just trying to
so you can be serious about that. We definitely
that's exactly what I told the galley. Yeah. Guess what? Pull from the start. Pull it like this way. It's perfect. And the thing is, what I can do with this, I actually like it's pretty good. Pull in all the other visual media. Yeah, Friday at 1, she said.
I'll break that. I'm going on. I was clearly Carl.
Well, I have you on Facebook, so I don't know.
They show up for jobs. It's still not a job. It's no, I'm part of the Facebook group. Jobs. And I'm top. That's the point.
I feel like this is something that we really work with. So we really do something nice, like not just let's make your hate.
I'm excited about what you had.
Yeah. Sounds good.
It was a pleasure to meet you.
Great to meet you. Yeah. Well, that's okay. I will accept it.
I'm going to need your help too.
Sure. Absolutely. I really just love the Best Picture show. Back when it was the only place you could go see Star Wars. I was going to see it on TV. So I went to see Star Wars at the time, Best Picture show in the early 80s.
I was just like,
Did you?
All three. Well, so next time around, I'll send you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll do that. Sounds good. Absolutely.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, you've been on your
Yeah, that'd be cool.
We can
I mean, the trick with it is to start simple and you get musicians there who are enjoying it, and then you can start to add in flair and context and that kind of stuff. You don't want to wow with all your ideas. Do you watch The Office? Do you watch The Office?
Oh, yeah, I did. Like, nothing. I mean, this is essentially a cell phone with its own network, and it connects to that. So it's like hotspot. It's hotspotting itself. But the city internet, I can't get on. What is CH Public? Yeah, and I can't get anything on the PC. Well, I understand. It's streaming fine. I just can't watch it while I'm in here. I can walk outside and watch it on my phone. Yeah. Oh, sure. Apparently there is used to.
But no, that was yours. Not only because I
It's not happened in the last 2 meetings now. Otherwise, it usually
it's
used to be spotty, but now it's not even happening.
And maybe other people that are using CH Public that are
It's like I said, even if
if it's spotty live, that's fine. It still records it, so it can still come back. It's still all transparent in the fact that it records when it's not.
Do you have like a buffer?
Like a 30-second buffer or something like that? It's at the whim of Facebook is what it is, and so Facebook has those issues as well. It's not just the spotty internet, but it's the Facebook. I mean, I can't get by on any of the public schools either. So. Go down together on drugs, and my signal's fine.
I got a whole police and fire department that. That's where it goes. No.
Started working again, like they